into your Monday edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks. We've got a great show lined up for you. Turron Davenport, who covers the Tennessee Titans, is going to join us momentarily to talk about the signing of Deandre Hopkins. Also, Liz Loza is going to jump on board, fantasy football analyst, find out what type of fantasy and prop bet implications we can expect. And Tyler Fulghum is going to join us, of course, staying a little bit later after Daily Wager to give us a open championship preview. But first, let's start in the NFL, where obviously a key free agent, one of the biggest names, has made a decision, of course, and that's Deandre Hopkins going to the Titans. The deal expected to be finalized the next few days, a deal that is 2 years, Diana Rossini is reporting. He spent 7 years in Houston, 5 of which he went over 1,000 yards receiving and had 3 double-digit touchdown seasons. And then in 2020, went to Arizona, going for 1,400 yards, but injuries and suspension kept him off the field 15 of his 34 possible games. So with that being said, let's bring in Turron, who does a phenomenal job covering the Tennessee Titans, who's joining us from vacation. How I feel special. How blessed are we? So first things first, as we know, Deandre Hopkins visited quite a few teams, the New England Patriots being one of them. Why did he choose the Tennessee Titans?
Well, I think it really came down to one thing that always is going to influence your decision, and that's the money. They were able to get a very good deal done for him. And then in addition to that, when he visited the Titans in Nashville, their presentation was phenomenal. They put him in a Sprinter Mercedes van. They shuffled him around the city. He got to go to the CMAs. And in fact, when he left, he posted on social media, Nashville is a vibe. You also have to look at the fit. He really fits this offense. He's opposite Treylon Burks. He'll get to groom a young fella into being a number one receiver. And then he works in play action really well. And that's something the Titans do. He'll get one-on-one coverage on the outside because a lot of teams are going to focus on stopping Derrick Henry. So for all those reasons, he made that decision.
Yeah, I can totally see that with Derrick Henry in that backfield play action. Teams' defenses have to respect the run. But let's talk about the quarterback position, right? Ryan Tannehill, a lot of people expecting him to start, but there's a quarterback in waiting. How do you see the quarterback situation panning out to start the season?
Yeah, Ryan Tannehill will be the starter. That's something that Mike Vrabel said at the draft, and it's something that we've seen through OTAs and minicamp. There was a clear separation between Tannehill and then Malik Willis and Will Levis. And that's something that we've seen. I think it's going to play out like this. Levis and Willis are going to compete for the backup spot. I believe that both of those guys make the roster. Right now, Willis had a better showing at OTAs and minicamp. He threw with more anticipation. He was very efficient in the operation of getting in and out of the huddle, taking the snap, making the adjustments, going through his reads and those type of things. Will Levis is still a learning process for him, and that's understandable. He's a rookie, although he played in a scheme similar. But it's really a matter of him being able to stop throwing lightning bolts on every single route. Sometimes you have to throw with touch, and I talked to him, and he said that's something that he's going to work on. Now, with Tannehill being the starter, both of these guys will get a full half of each of the preseason games. Tannehill hasn't played in the preseason in a bit, so that's something to look at. And that's going to give them an opportunity to really showcase what they could do and battle it out for that backup spot.
Great insight, Turron. Thank you so much for spending time with us during your vacation. So enjoy the rest of your vacation in LA. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
You got it. All right, so let's take a look at some of the Titans' futures, right? Hopkins yardage prop set at 925.5. Their win total at 7.5. They have the second shortest division odds at plus 320, and you could get them to make it to the playoffs at plus 250. All right, we just heard from Turron. For more on Deandre Hopkins and how his fantasy football and prop bet implications could affect us in the NFL, let's bring in Liz Loza, our fantasy football analyst. You can see her all over our ESPN platforms. So we just heard from Turron. Let's focus on Deandre Hopkins, right? As we can see his receiving total, 925.5. I know you've got him ranked in your top 20 in regard to wide receivers coming into this season. So what are your expectations, Liz, for Deandre Hopkins this season?
Well, my expectations expectation is that he's going to be the Titans' #1 wide receiver. This is a player who is still elite. He may not be as fast as he once was, but he is still a savvy route runner. He can still separate at an elite level, and that sort of talent will command looks, because obviously the big question mark is how many looks will he draw in such a low volume passing offense. The Titans recorded the 3rd fewest pass attempts last year, so I think that number is going to go up a little bit when you have a talent like Hopkins, and he's going to draw 8+ targets per week, which puts him on pace for 120 on the season. I think that puts him, I think if you do the math on that, assuming he converts on, let's say, 66%, which is not a high bar of his opportunities, he should sail past this line and probably flirt with 950 to potentially 1,000 at the highest end receiving yards on the season.
Yeah, I think the big question mark is, can he stay healthy? If he does, I'm with you. He's going to be the centerpiece of this offense in the passing game. He's going to get a ton of targets. Who knows if Tennessee is going to be playing from behind this season? I don't have them winning their division. And also, there's a lot of familiarity in this offense because he knows there's history there from his time with the Texans, with the Titans offensive coordinator, and of course his time with Vrabel as well. Okay, so how is he going to affect, I guess, the other dudes in this wide receiving core, right? He's going to get all the attention from the opposing defenses. So who do you think is going to benefit from him being added to this wide receiving core? Somebody like Burks?
Well, I don't know if I want to say benefit, but when I look at some of the props available, Burks did stand out to me. Right now, he has an over-under prop of 685.5 receiving yards. I'm going to take the over on that because I think the market is like, oh no, massive hit to Treylon Burks. No year 2 breakout for him. But if you do the math on it, I think that Burks will still get enough done to hit the over. I actually think he's probably going to flirt with around 750 receiving yards on the season, assuming he can average 3 to 4 catches per week. That's not going to be tough. And when you look at the kind of player he is, really, really fast for his size, can bowl over defenders, and can pad his receiving stats with yards after the catch. So I like the over on 685.5 receiving yards for Burks. And again, think he'll probably clear 7, maybe even get to 750.
Okay, let's look at the team in its total. Again, winning total 7.5, even though, of course, they play in the AFC South. They're going to face the NFC South. Does this team, do you have faith that the Tennessee Titans can win 8 games this season, Liz?
I don't think it's going to happen because the entire division has ostensibly gotten better. At least they've made changes. You've got Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson coming to Indianapolis. You've got D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud coming to Houston. And obviously, we talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who the Titans failed to beat both times they played them last week. So I would take the under on 7.5 wins. I think 6 to 7 is probably the range that the Titans are in.
Great stuff as always. Really excited. I'll be seeing you in Bristol in August for our fantasy football marathon. I'll be there with you for the draft. So I'll see you then, Liz.
See ya.
All right. So we go from the gridiron to the links. It is the 151st Open Championship at Royal Liverpool. Let's take a look at these odds from Caesar. Scotty Scheffler favored at plus 650. Rory 7-1. Rahm 2-1. Cam Smith, the only one outside of 20-1, looking to defend his title. All right, so Tyler has been kind enough to stick around after Daily Wager to play a little edition of the Open Championship. Place or pass. Tyler, you ready to go?
I'm ready. Anita, let's rock and roll.
All right, so as I just stated, Rory 7-1 to win the Open. Are you placing or are you passing?
I'm passing, Anita. It's not because I don't like Rory and don't think he has a really good chance to end his drought and win at this event. Of course, he's won the Open before 2014. He's coming off that Scottish Open victory. He's in good form. Everything checks out for Rory. I just don't want to pay that price. I'm not going to lay $7 when I can try and find some better value way further down the odds board. So I like Rory, as you'll see in just a second, but I'm not going to bet him in the outright market because the price is just too prohibitive.
Well, I am going to play him. Deandre Hopkins gives him a 9% chance of winning. Again, as we just stated, he won that Genesis Scottish Open. And he's known to fade on Sunday. He just didn't win, Tyler. But, for him to birdie 17 and 18, avoid a playoff, and win it in regulation, to me, screams he is ready to take the world by storm. And as you said, he plays great on links courses, and he has won here before back in 2014. So I am going to play with Rory. Let's talk about Jon Rahm. 12-1, place or pass?
This is one I would place. When we think about the golf landscape right now, Anita, there's really kind of three guys who dominate. It is Rory, it is Scottie Scheffler, and it is Jon Rahm. And right now, the best price you can get for this event is on Jon Rahm. I think they all should be close to about 12-1. But it's really only Rahm that gives you that price. So I'll forego betting on Scheffler. I'll forego betting on Rory. I'll take the best price for that amongst that trio, which we know are the three best golfers in the world right now. Rahm is not quite in the form that Rory and Scheffler bring to the table, and he hasn't won an Open Championship. But I do think if he plays his A game, he can beat anyone, and this is the type of course that sets up well for him. So I will play Rahm. I'll place that bet at 12-1.
Interesting. I'm going opposite. I'm going to pass here, even though Deandre does give him a 5.7% chance of winning this bad boy. He has not won since the Masters. 7 of the last 10 winners here of the Open have played in the Genesis Scottish Open. And guess what? As we know, Rahm did not tee off last week. Granted, he's on the opposite side of the pond playing some links courses, but he did not play in that tournament, and he does not have a great track record at the Open. So I'm going to pass. Let's talk about the defending champion, Cam Smith, coming in. He's 16-1. Place or pass?
It's a pass for me. Again, love Cam Smith as a golfer. Think he will place well. It's just very hard to go back-to-back at a major, and 16-1 is a little bit too prohibitive. If this was in the 25, 26, 27, 28-1 range, sure, I would buy that value. But asking someone to go back-to-back at an Open Championship, just very, very hard. So I think we're getting a bit of an inflated price on Cam Smith relative to the real-life probability of him winning. Again, I play him in other facets, maybe head-to-heads, but outright market, I'll pass on that 16-1.
Wow, yet again, Tyler, we are on opposite sides. I'm going to place here. Granted, he plays on the Live Tour, so we don't really see him front and center, but he won the Live London tournament just 2 weeks ago, went wire to wire to win that on a links course. When asked about his game coming into the Open, how on point is he? He said he's never been better. He feels his game is at the top notch that it's ever been. So I am going to place with Cam Smith to defend his title. Let's talk about some long shots. Somebody I haven't mentioned. Is there a long shot out there with some really tempting odds that you're going to play?
Yeah, and this is a long, long shot. Like his distance off the tee, the Belgian bomber, Thomas Pieters at 200-1. That price to me doesn't quite add up. I think he should be closer to 125, 130 in that range. So good value on Pieters, who's a guy who has made the cut in each of his last 4 Open Championships. Now, his best finish is a 25th, I believe, amongst that quartet. But he at least gets to the weekend. And when you have the talent of Thomas Pieters, he can get hot at 200-1. I just don't think the price aligns with actual reality in terms of his probability, which is small, to win this tournament. But again, 200-1 is the type of ticket I like to have in the outright market when we're talking about golf. And Pieters has the talent to win his first major, that's for sure.
There was a few guys I was eyeing, Wyndham Clark being one of them at 65-1. As we know, he won the U.S. Open, coming in tied for 16th last year at the Genesis Scottish Open. I've got some high hopes for him. I'm going to be utilizing him in my DFS. But Tyler, Dustin Johnson, some would argue the best player on the planet in regard to consistency, right? Strokes gained across the board in all 4 major categories. One of the best, and you could get him at 30-1, 35-1. Are you kidding me? And that Live London tournament, he finished tied for 5th. So I think he's coming in feeling really good about his game on a link-style course. So for me, it's going to be DJ. I mentioned fantasy. I'm sure you've got a great fantasy lineup heading into this week's Open. So what is it? Tell us the players you're going to be lining up in your DFS lineup.
All right, I passed on Rory at 7-1, but I'm going to place him into my daily fantasy lineup at sub $12,000. He's the second most expensive golfer behind Scottie Scheffler, and we have some interesting pricing on DraftKings this week. So I'm going to anchor my lineup with Rory McIlroy. He's coming off that win at the Scottish. He's been nothing but top 5s and top 10s at this event the last few years and across the board. So I love Rory. Tommy Fleetwood and Jordan Spieth are two other names I'm going to have in there. Spieth may not be playing the best golf right now, but he is, of course, one of the best Open players that we have. Despite his form in recent years, Spieth has reeled off finishes of 8th, 2nd, 20th, 9th, and 1st. Tommy Fleetwood could have won the Scottish Open if not for that double bogey or been in contention, but he's another great links player. And then I'm going to find some value with Daniel Hillier at 6,100, Used Luton at 6,200, and the aforementioned Robert McIntyre at 6,800. All those guys sub-K. Luton's just a cut-making machine, 17 out of 18 cuts. Hillier's a guy who has 3 top 5 finishes in his last 5 worldwide starts, including a victory. Both of those players made the cut at the Scottish Open. And then there's McIntyre, we mentioned, was right there, if not for what Rory McIlroy did. He's a tremendous links player coming in, tremendous form to get him at sub $7,000. Those are 3 guys in the value range that allow you to pay up for guys like Rory and 2 other players in the 9K range. So if you want to mix and match at the top, I'd understand that. But I really want to encourage our viewers to consider those 3 players under 7,000, 2 of them being 62K or less. So some value, some stars and scrubs type of lineup for DraftKings this week at the Open. The pricing allows it to do that. Anita, we have guys you can pay as little as $5,500 for, if you would like.
That's pretty cheap. I like your Fleetwood pick there in your DFS lineup. He's playing like home cooking, right? He grew up around this golf course, eating his own porridge, sleeping in his own bed. Anyway, Tyler, thank you so much for previewing the Open with us here on Bet. I'm on my way to go play some pickleball. I know you've got a few more daylight hours in Las Vegas. I would imagine you're heading out to play some golf, so hit them straight.
I will, and I will definitely be pouring water all over myself in the 110-degree heat.
All right, well, before I let you go, it's the way we like to end Bet. We got to talk about the dude on my shirt, and that's Saquon Barkley. Adam Schefter reporting today that, of course, Barkley and the Giants could not come to an agreement before the 4:00 p.m. Eastern time cutoff. So what does that mean? Saquon Barkley is going to have to play with that franchise tag this season, $10.1 million for a running back. But will he hold out? This is how it's going to work. Every game that he does not play for the Giants, he is going to be losing out on $590,000. He has until week 10 to show up. If he does not show up after week 10, well, then he misses the entire season. So there is that. But what does this mean for Saquon Barkley, right? He was the straw that stirred the drink last season, 1,312 yards, 57 receptions, 10 touchdowns. But this is going to be a much different Giants offense than we saw last season. Why? Joe Shane, Brian Dable, they bring in a lot of weapons for Daniel Jones. Darren Waller, top 5 tight end in the NFL. Paris Campbell, they drafted Jalen Hyatt. Hodges, as well as Robinson, finally healthy. So how much will Saquon Barkley be a part of that passing attack? Not as much as last season. Let's take a look at some of their games that they might not have Saquon Barkley. They start off at Dallas, at Arizona. Home against Dallas to start the season. At Arizona, at San Francisco, Seattle, at Miami, the Bills, Washington, the Jets, the Raiders, and then Dallas. At Dallas is their 10th game. We'll see what happens. No disrespect to Saquon Barkley, but with the offensive firepower that now this team has surrounded Daniel Jones with, I don't think they're going to take as big of a hit as most people think. Again, this is before I let you go. Thank you so much for tuning in to Bet this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. We'll be back with you on Wednesday. Bye.